Hey there, Katilyn. This is your Uncle Richard. It is Friday, Friday the 29th of December. Um, your mom asked me if I could do a video for you, and I said sure. But I didn't plan on doing one today. I'm not dressed I'm dressed, but I mean, I'm not like dressed up, just in my casual things. And I came to the school today to work on work on my sermon, and also to get some of my stuff ready for teaching. So I was thinking of what I could tell you since I'm working on my sermon. I thought I'd share my sermon with you, and well, not all of it, okay, but so let me get right to it. My scripture comes from John 14, verses 1 to 3. And Jesus says to his disciples, he says, "Let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many rooms. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there you may be also." Heavenly Father, Lord, I ask for your Spirit to help me rightly divide the word. This will be an encouragement to Katilyn and anyone who happens to hear this, and for myself as well. I thank you for your word, Father. I thank you for your Spirit. I thank you for the wonder of it all. It's a beautiful story, and it's all true. May this be for your glory, Lord. Amen. Okay, so we have Jesus telling his disciples, don't let your heart be troubled. He just told his disciples that he's about to be, I don't know if he said crucified, but that he's going to be handed over to the authorities and killed. And then he's going to leave them, and his disciples, say, are really, really scared. I don't know what's going on. So Jesus then gives them this promise, and he says, don't let your heart be troubled. Well, I've been doing some research on this, and see, when we read the Bible, we tend to look at it through Western eyes. I mean, through the eyes of our culture. Because we're Americans, we're modern, and so Jesus was a Jew, and this is back in 2,000 years ago. So we need to look at this more through the eyes of a Jew than we do with our own eyes, and it'll make much more sense. So what do I mean? I mean, going back to what was a Jewish wedding like back then. This is hot cocoa, by the way, which is fantastic. So my son Evan and Alyssa, you saw them at your house. They're getting married in July, and I'm actually going to preach for their wedding, and this is kind of what I'm going to preach, which is really, really cool. But if Evan and Alyssa were back in the time of Christ, what would happen would be the father would send Evan, my son. I would say, go find a wife. I would, me and Alyssa's dad would kind of agree. It was the fathers who set things up. And so Alyssa's dad and my dad would kind of talk it out a little bit. And then to make it official, Evan would go over to Alyssa's house and talk to the father. And what he would do is he would negotiate the price. Because back then, you were actually purchasing a bride for yourself. And I know that sounds kind of weird. But it's not. We have to think of it in the way that he's purchasing her because he's going to take care of her and provide for her. And so this is an act of love. So Evan would meet with Alyssa's dad and come up with the price. What is this going to be? They'd sign a contract. And the contract, Evan would make promises that said, okay, I'm going to take care of Alyssa. I promise to, provide for her. All these different things that Evan and Alyssa's dad would agree to. And then if her dad thought, this looks good, this seems like a good provider for my daughter, then they would go to Alyssa. And if Alyssa said yes, they would have a cup of wine and they would share it. And by drinking that wine together, Evan and Alyssa, that meant that they were married. Okay? But it's different than now because that marriage was called a betrothal. So they would be married, but they would not live together. And so then what would happen if this is back then? So Evan and Alyssa would share the cup of wine, and then Evan would leave to prepare a place for his bride, for Alyssa. And he would be gone, about a year. And he would be working at his father's house and getting everything ready. Now, while Alyssa was waiting for the return of Evan, she would be getting herself ready to be a bride. So she'd get clothes and belongings and all these things, that'll be ready. So when she goes to her place, she'll be ready. And so this was an exciting time. And here's the wild part is that she would not know when he's coming back. So only Evan's dad, hey, that'd be neat. Only I would know when it was time. So Evan would be at my house adding a room, so he'd have a place for Alyssa and him. He'd be working on it. I'm not a carpenter, so I would have nothing to do with it, but he would add on to my house, which would be kind of nice. If he could add a garage too, that would be super. But Evan would be working on that. And when I thought that Evan was ready, not only just that the room is ready, but I think, he is ready to now be a husband. And I'd call Evan in and I'd say, son, go get her. I love that. Go get her. And then Evan would get his friends together, and with a great shout, they would march through the streets, blowing trumpets and going to get the bride. And then Alyssa would suddenly hear the sound of trumpets and shouting, and she's like, Evan's coming, oh man. And she would run out to meet him with her friends, and they would all go back to the father's house. And then they would be alone. And after 7 days, they would come out and Evan would present his bride to everybody, and they would have a great feast. And so when Jesus is saying to his disciples, he says, don't be troubled. I go to my Father's house to prepare a place for you. See, the church, if you're a believer in Christ Jesus, you're the bride. And so even though Jesus is not physically with us now, he has gone to prepare a place. So he didn't just abandon us. He hasn't forgotten about us. He is preparing a place in his Father's house. And at a time known to the Father, when the time is absolutely right, when it's absolutely perfect, Jesus is going to come back with a shout. He's going to come back for his bride. The Father's going to say to his Son, go get her. And he's, boom. And it's going to be amazing. We will be taken up to meet him in the air. And so that verse makes a whole lot more sense when we look at it through the eyes of a Hebrew for the wedding customs. Jesus says, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there you may be also. So it means that we will be with Christ forever and ever. And so that's my sermon pared way down. I think it's such a beautiful picture. And so this leukemia that you're going through, I've seen I've seen lots of suffering. I saw homeless people when I was in Minneapolis. How can you be homeless when it's sub-zero? and just seeing people struggling, and I look at this world and I think, oh, this can be such a dark place. But Jesus hasn't abandoned us. He is preparing a place for us. This is not it. This existence that we have right now, this life that I have right now is not it. Just like for you, Katilyn. This isn't over. This isn't it. So no matter what is to come, we have this promise that He's going to come back for us. And He's going to get us. Father's going to say, go get her. Father's going to say, go get Katilyn. Go get her. Go get Richard. And that's our hope. So we need to be like that bride that is expecting the husband, to come for her any minute, and getting ourselves ready. And so that's my hope. That's my hope. Because I don't know the future, and I pray for you, and I pray for your healing. I also pray that we'll trust the Lord in whatever He's doing in His timing, and to trust Him. Because this can be a really dark place. But when we're with Christ, it's all going to be fixed. It's all. There will be no more sickness. There will be no more pain. There will be none of that stuff. No more fear. We will be with Christ forever and ever. And I can't even imagine what that will be like. But very exciting. So I hope this made some sense to you. And then what we're going to do on Sunday is celebrate communion. Because what Jesus did is He gave a cup to His disciples. And see what He was doing there. That was the bridegroom. He worked out the price with His Father, with the Father. And the price was that Jesus was going to lay down His life. That He was going to shed His blood. That was going to be the price. It wasn't going to be money. It was going to be Him. He was going to offer Himself to purchase this bride. So He gives that wine. And at our church, we drink Jesus and I'll drink wine. But when we take that cup, what we're saying is yes. We're saying yes to the groom. And so in our church, we don't, these are symbols. It doesn't save you. It doesn't do something magical to you. But what communion is in that cup is what Jesus said. He's saying, will you be my bride? And when we take the cup, we say yes. And He says, do this to remember me. And and He says, do that every time you take it. And so when we take this communion, we're remembering that we have a husband who has gone to the Father's house to prepare a place for us, and He is coming back at a time known only to the Father. And communion makes so much more sense as to what it all means. It's us saying yes. Well, Katilyn, if you ever want me to talk about anything, I'd be glad to do it. I have been working on a song, but it's not quite ready, and my voice isn't quite ready. But it's called Tell Your Heart to Beat Again. I think what I'll do is I think I'll include a link to that video of the guy actually singing it. But it's a song that means a lot to me. It really does. It encourages me. I've listened to it over and over again when I'm working out and stuff. The message is so encouraging. Okay, well, I'll upload this and put it on your site, and we're so good to see you. So good to see you.